My name's Trev Bryan, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the Dimension Data Cloud Business Unit. And I'm here today to talk to our esteemed panel about partnering for ISV success, and most specifically around SaaS and cloud. We've got a panel with a lot of experience. I think many of you know them already, but for those who don't, I will let them do a quick introduction on who they are and what they do, and then we'll get into the panel. So Faizi, we'll start off with you.
All right, Faizi Fatehi, I'm the CEO of Current Technology. Current Technology provides a SaaS enablement platform. It's a software that enables a regular application software to become SaaS.
Kevin O'Brien, I'm responsible for business development in Oracle's ISV and OEM business. That's where we work with other software providers that are embedding Oracle content, or in the case of cloud, building their applications on top of an Oracle architecture.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Lou Gersh. I'm the CEO of Scribe Software. We're a data integration technology provider. And in short, what we do is we allow companies to very easily connect to any of their customer data, so CRM, ERP, marketing automation, contact center, and get it from wherever it is to wherever they need it to be, so that it'll create business value for them.
Hi, my name is David Roth. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AppFirst. AppFirst is a SaaS-based operational intelligence company. One of our key customer segments that we serve is the SaaS world. So if anyone here is building a software as a service company, it could be a great fit for leveraging our product. What I mean by operational intelligence is we provide complete visibility at the systems, applications, and business metric level. So that basically in this whole DevOps world, your developer side, your ops side, and the business leadership can all be on the same page about how your application is performing to run your business.
That's good. So we have everything from one of the world's largest traditional software companies to a dedicated, born and bred startup on SaaS. I'm going to ask you one question out of the gate, just real briefly, because to give everybody kind of a baseline. And that's how much today of your business is being done through partners as opposed to direct. And for those of you who have both the traditional business and the SaaS business, if you can even break it down by how much of your traditional business is direct and through channels, and how much of your SaaS business is direct and through channels. So,
Okay, so in our case, it's 50-50 to give a straightforward answer, but our business model by definition is a partnering model, because by ourselves, we don't sell our solution. It adds with a traditional software and turns it into a complete SaaS solution. So basically, we're a natural partner with other ISVs. But as far as influence in the market, for example, IBM is a big partner. And I can say about half of our business is influenced by IBM bringing customers to the table for us.
Kevin, are you allowed to say?
So at Oracle, partners are a big part of our business. If you look at it on a revenue basis, more than 40% of Oracle's revenue comes through partners. If you look at it on a transaction basis, though, more than 80% of transactions come through partners. So Oracle definitely works with partners to broaden out our offerings, to target different markets, and to increase the value of our solutions to customers.
So at Scribe, our software or our cloud-based services typically get bought at the time where there's a new CRM, marketing automation, or ERP solution being implemented. So partners are usually right there with those customers doing the implementation. So 85% of our software business goes through a partner channel, and that can be from VARs to global systems integrators. And then actually I was saying to Trev prior to us heading up here for the panel, what surprised me is I thought that might follow suit with our cloud service, because it has like functionality to our premise-based software product. But because it's cloud and people can just go get it and trial it, and we're finding there's a 60-40 split. We're seeing 60% moving through the partner, and yet still 40 to 45% on a given quarter is going direct.
As Trev mentioned earlier, we are a pure built in the cloud SaaS-based model. And so, but with that said, it's interesting, similar to what you just stated, we have at least a 60-40 partner-driven revenue growth in our company. And that's probably for a few reasons. One is, since our inception or launching our offering in the spring of 2010, a lot of the big cloud vendors and the infrastructure as a service side, as well as platform as a service, would recommend their customers to our product. So we were, to give an example, like Rackspace would send us about 85 to 100 new companies each month. And that was just, a referral-driven partnership type relationship. Since then, our partnering has matured quite a bit to where the partnering's built inside to our cloud partners. So where the cloud vendors themselves use our product in-house, and then they turn around and provide a way for their customers to utilize our product without them having to go to us. It's just kind of like an add-on from the cloud provider to say, I would like this extra visibility, dashboards, and so forth.
Right. And I think that's going to be one of the more interesting things we get into is how it can be embedded into a technology as opposed to a more traditional kind of just resale partnership. Let's hold on that for a minute.
Okay.
Real quick from the audience here, how many of you are at a purely cloud, and how many are at a company that is a traditional software and a cloud environment? So how many just purely cloud? And then how many have some traditional software experience in the company? And I'm guessing most in the audiences even have had traditional software experience, if not even at their current company. We didn't all been in the cloud for 30 years. So what's the difference, then, Lou, I'll start with you, since you're doing both, in partnering from the traditional software side and what you're seeing with your cloud partners?
Traditional partnering with software, that's something we've got a really good groove stroke on. We've been doing that for a long time. I think, it's a fairly technical product, right? Getting these large databases and ERP and CRM environments to connect to one another usually requires certification of partners. So we do a lot around enabling partners, onboarding them, certifying their technical consultants, video libraries, just anything we can do, training, anything to make them as capable as possible at being successful when they're implementing a new solution. So we certainly take a lot of those best practices into the cloud. The cloud play for us has really opened up the opportunity for us to work with ISVs. So we just announced strategic partnerships with like Marketo and ExactTarget, where those guys have connectors into Salesforce and Microsoft CRM and so forth, but they're looking to add extra value, right? They want to be able to connect to other data sources beyond what they can do within, say, the App Exchange. So for us, it's sort of enabling the ISVs to be able to go to market through our service, our cloud service, and let them take it to market in a way that suits how they want to work with their customers. So, some of it we've done the same, regardless of whether or not it's software or cloud. But I think, the cloud is certainly opening up new routes to market, and I think we have to behave differently in terms of our enablement. We have to be a little bit more creative and sort of be more open-minded to how the ISVs want to go to market.
So you're seeing is also, like Dave said, attached to other products as part of a big part of that strategy?
Yeah, it clearly is. we, the people can take it as OEM or embed, but, we don't really have an application that the typical user is going to log into, right? It sort of operates behind the scene. It's sort of the PVC piping of data. People don't really want to see the piping. They just want to know that when they flush the toilet,
it all works.
It goes. it's out of the room, right? And that's kind of the way our stuff works. So what we want to do is embed as much as possible our offering within how those ISVs want to go to market. And the cloud, from provisioning to billing, marketing, sales, everything that you want to do enables so much more of a tightly coupled joint offering. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, so that's been the promise for a while, having been to 8 of these, that we would have this idea of an embedded solutions that integrate with each other. We haven't seen the full fulfillment of that yet. We haven't seen any billion-dollar companies as an embedded solution. What is it that, that not only makes it work, but how do you get those relationships to actually work then? What do you have to do with your software to make sure you can sell it in that way, Dave?
Well, I think there's two sides of this. One is a technical side and one's a business side. On the technical side, I think if you build your company, your technology to be partner ready, you're extremely committed and robust on APIs and on how to make everything beyond extensible. It's one thing to say it, to market it, to play kind of some lip service to it, but to be amazing at it, I mean, to actually have a volume of business success come through revenue-wise, you're not going to get there if you haven't been maniacal about having just extremely rich APIs. And you know, that's the thoroughness of it. It's documentation and completeness, you know, SDKs. I mean, you're basically making it really ready and enabled for folks to go at it and have a lot of examples. In our world, not only have we made that a mandate in the company, anything and everything you can do with our product visually is all API enabled. There's nothing that anyone has written to internally that wasn't using the same API that somebody externally would use. That was kind of a first mandate we created. The second was we open sourced in a GitHub all UI. So to us, we're immediately giving you know, templates and ability for people to work with to say, oh, that's how that part of your product's calling an API and how to work with it. So this kind of enables the technical side of the partnership to go fast. The second thing is the business, is just basically ensuring that when you're forming these relationships that they're not, you know, Barney agreements and that you're kind of having logo wear on sites and this and that, but you're literally working on a very strategic level to say, what problems are we solving by embedding? You know, what are they trying to do? And then from there, being really committed to that partner's success on how they embed you. I think from our vantage point, you know, I think I could be sitting here next year, even after growing some new direct talent in our company. I wouldn't be shocked if my number of 60-40 next year will be somewhere between 70-30 or closer to 80, because the embedding side's working so phenomenally well. And I just think by the way, I do have one other quick opinion, is I think there's a difference between embedding and also white labeling, where basically your brand is lost. You're kind of inside purely someone's solution. I'm a big fan of co-branding,
Yeah.
and I think and you probably have seen a lot of that as well. But I think a lot of these opportunities, people are interested in collaboration, and usually there's a reason why at a certain level, things need to be able to come back to your company for support relationships or certain things so they can see the value you're providing on the embedded relationship.
So you guys are both only sell on co-branding? Do you ever do a brandless sale?
In 3.5 years, we haven't done a single agreement that didn't minimally co-brand. So we kind of created an app first, a powered by app first moniker or logo, and fundamentally, minimally speaking, even if we've reskinned, co-branded, and so forth, people always know that they're powered by app first. And the other thing that can happen is, again, because we're providing, in our case, like this operational intelligence platform, various partners on an embedded basis, and actually probably somewhat true for your business too, where each of our businesses could probably do a number of different things for a given client. And even though in a given use case we entered from, like, he could have a scenario of a certain, integration between one type of a product and another, we could have a subset of operational intelligence used. That's one of the things that's helpful on the co-branding, is for customers to be able to come back and go, oh, here's the other opportunities I have here, what else I can do.
Do you require co-branding, Facey, or do you do a straight up, or you can be transparent as part of the operations?
Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics, co-branding, and brand becomes so powerful as part of a value proposition. We modeled Corent after Intel Inside. One of the most powerful branding that took place in high-tech industry was Intel Inside. Every computer you open, everything, there is that logo, which is co-branding, which is Dell, Intel Inside, Toshiba, Intel Inside, HP, IBM, Lenovo. So we modeled Corent, and the name Corent was designed by the same gentleman, Rick Sharga, who came up with Intel Inside, Core Enterprise, Corent. So we become the software processor, the software core for the modern SaaS enterprise. So basically, the word Corent Inside, or powered by Corent, is continuously, you will see that. And I'd say, well, that's the equivalent of Intel Inside. It's the co-branding. We provide the core processing for a SaaS solution, and the ISV provides all the application specific for that domain expertise. They could be in hospitality, in healthcare, in entertainment, in supply chain, CRM, whatever it is, powered by Corent. because we provide the AAS, provide the as a service, and they provide the software. Software as a service combined, and within days, we can go to market as a fully operational SaaS. So to answer your question, Trev, by design, we are a co-branding.
Okay, so, and you require that as well. Kevin, you don't always require, do you? Do you have any Oracle inside?
In terms of working with SaaS companies, and obviously Oracle powers 10 of the top 10 SaaS businesses in the world, and over 1,000 others. We find it, sometimes they want to use branding and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's relevant to their end user market to reveal that their infrastructure is based on Oracle, particularly in regulated markets. So if they're selling into financial services or healthcare or government, there is more scrutiny put on the security of the data. The same would be true of larger enterprises where you're going and pitching to a CIO. So a lot of SaaS companies that we see as they move from SMB markets to more enterprise markets and speak with the CIO gets more interested in where is my data actually housed, and what are the procedures around that. It being in an Oracle database based on Oracle architecture makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. We see some people use it, and some people don't use it as much because they might have some markets, like if you look at the HR market, it's a very technically unsophisticated market. So the buyer just says, hey, do you have the functionality I need? Have you done the integrations to other applications? Does this solve my immediate problem? They don't crawl under the covers and say, hey, where's my data going? Things like that, which you might actually want with your HR data, but it's kind of how that market's been.
So, you talked about APIs. I think that is obviously a big difference from when we started this conference years ago, that people understand the importance of it. I don't know how much, though, we fully still kind of understand the model and what's necessary there. While most companies now will have an API for their application functionality, often failing in some of the parts of critical to the partner channel, client activation, billing, user roles and permissions, things that aren't really anything to do with the app itself, but how the app would actually be in a commercial prospect. How have you guys solved those problems? So if someone wants just to go click and buy something from a SaaS provider, that flows through to you transparently without anybody getting involved, or have you yet? I mean, are you still having people have to get in the middle to make the sale?
I'd love to respond to that one, Trev. So with our cloud product, which we call Scribe Online, we had an opportunity, since we started development of that in the middle of 2010, so very recently, to sort of look at sort of the API that would be used for the purpose of ISVs and GSIs to, and by that I mean global systems integrators, to write connectors, essentially, to our platform, right? So this is what we use as our primary incentive for these ISVs to be part of our ecosystem. We're trying to build a highly relevant ecosystem so that when those ISVs come to Scribe Online, they say, oh great, you've got some superbly written APIs that are documented, supported, and in fact, we say to them, hey, we use the exact same APIs to develop our own connectors that you guys will do, and we'll spend as much time as you need enabling you to make sure you can use them effectively. That's been really super helpful. But at the same time, we also know that there's going to be this collaborative element between the systems integrators and the ISVs and then the line of business. So then we built within the browser, right, the UI that people use when they're actually building, managing, monitoring their integrations, where there are these role-based capabilities. So if, let's say, Trev is the ISV, I'm the SI, and David here is the line of business guy, he's in marketing or IT, we can collaborate on that as if we're together in the same room, but we're doing that all virtually with a sort of a roles-based capability. And so the combination of the APIs with this collaborative element allows people to really deliver a lot of value very quickly, not only in terms of building the connector, but in terms of how they would actually implement it and ultimately extend it and modify it over time. So I think we're really trying to, and every ISV should try to take its full advantage of the ability to collaborate using the cloud.
I have kind of probably a strong opinion to this area too. I think, first of all, I do agree where we were a few years ago compared to where we are now is night and day. I think there was a lot of talk for years about the theories of it and with the ideals of it. But when the rubber hits the road and you're growing a scalable, built inside type of situation, there is no more theory, right? That's when suddenly, I kind of look at our world as two things. First of all, everything's got to be documented as well as possible and so forth. And the second part is, no matter how good of a job a developer did to enable those external APIs, there can be room for improvement. And I think the more you mature and grow in this kind of a model, for example, when we were growing with EngineYard over the last year, and they took complete utilization out of this API model. There's part of how they use this internally on operations and support that they're literally having a series of their own applications on top of this platform, and they've hammered APIs in a way that we never could have guessed, right? I mean, we had some developers that's heads were spinning over, I think the words were abuse, like we didn't think of it.
Yeah, we've used that word before on the API usage as well. So, yeah.
So I think what, in partnership, I think this, again, in the end of the day, you work with all parties involved to ensure you're getting the speed of information to say, hey, wait a second, even though if an API is there, it's been written well, maybe the time needs to be re-architected a bit, cleaned up, and optimized for performance so it can handle the greater hammering and load that certain users of the APIs could do. So I think, when I look at us even over the course of the last 18 months on some massively used examples, I think that's got to be part of the commitment, is the ongoing performance improvements to it. And I think the other thing, I was in a meeting earlier today with somebody else in our company and some folks that were talking to us about integration. And I think even if you're prioritizing like an A list, B list, and so forth about how your product can work with other products, it's a two-way street, right? And I think there's some parties that really aren't as API rich and aren't as ready to play as others. And I think part of the decision making is, especially if you care about speed, is working more closely with the folks that are as documented as possible, and you've got ways to go bi-directionally with sharing the information.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the tough questions. We're giving you all the softballs.
It's been easy until
that
now.
out. You look at the cloud. You look at the biggest players, whether it's the infrastructure side or the software as a service side, and it's a direct model. Amazon sells direct, Salesforce sells direct. I mean, they've got some guys doing integration and stuff, but even then you're primarily integrating with these guys. With the internet out there, short of being an embedded product, aren't all the winners really still going to be the guys who have the front and own the end client relationship? And do we really need system integrators today, or traditional channels today, in a world where you can discover self-discovery on the internet is a part of every 17-year-old on the planet can find what they want and the apps they need on the internet? Do we need that role? And for the short of being an embedded component, is there a real big business and channel as opposed to the direct model?
Yes and no, with the emphasis on no. Let me elaborate. So you framed the question really well. So imagine, how many of you are familiar with Salesforce.com? Okay. I assume most people.
I'm going to assume that we now know, that was really a question, how many people will not raise their hand no matter what question we ask?
Yeah.
Because that's over half the room.
Exactly, thank you, Trev. How many of you
That's a great test.
So look at it, it's a phenomenal service. People have subscribed to it. Last time I checked, 125,000 companies are using that service, CRM service, to run their Salesforce. All right, fantastic. However, if a company specializes in a specific industry, let's say pharmaceuticals, and want to customize Salesforce CRM for a specific pharmaceutical segment of the market, how would that company can resell Salesforce.com, which is a service fully customized for that segment, into that segment, without going through the trouble of re-hosting a solution, which you can't, because Salesforce.com doesn't give you the code. So imagine if there was a SaaS company that provided such phenomenal service and allowed the channel, the experts, the systems integrators, the people who had a specific domain expertise to customize the solution, in this case, example, Salesforce.com, and sell it with their own label, with their own company name, promoting their own brand in that sub-segment of the market, and sell that service, serve the customers better because it's better customized for them, They make money, and Salesforce.com resells their solution to that specialty market. So that's the yes and no. It's direct as long as the SaaS solution, the cloud service, allows customization, configuration, and allows a third party truly bring their value add. And then at the end of the day, it's all about serving the customers better. So I'm
And I'm gonna ask Oracle on this one, because we will ask, 'cause I take a look at maybe someone else who's plays in the same, the same level of size of company as you guys. And, 10 years ago, they wouldn't sell anything if it wasn't through a partner. You could not buy mail services from, say, the large provider enterprise mail in the world unless you bought it through a partner. And then Gmail came out and provided a direct sale alternative that caused them to change direction on their partner model for mail services and a direct model for mail services. A massive change in direction. Is that something that all the partner and traditional guys are going to get forced to, with guys like Google saying, screw that, I'm going direct to the client, I'm going to sell it to them for $5 and I can give them 90% of what they want and soon 110%?
I think it's a reality of the market that's been going on for a while. If you look, even in the traditional IT models, the successful partners have a services-based practice. And the ones that are participating in resell are typically doing so to get in on the front end of the deal so they can make the higher margins on the installation, the configuration, and the business change consulting around it. So I think if you look at the introduction of the cloud, it just continues that trend, but probably makes it a bit more stark, where the resell margin is even lower, typically in a cloud-based model. And that initial upfront setup work, the configuration, the data center work to roll things in and stitch things together isn't happening because it's already been done in the cloud solution. I think the benefit for an end customer, though, is that the services dollars and the services work is more focused on getting users productive and getting the application tuned to the business as opposed to just getting the applications up and running. So I think there's still a large role for partners. I don't see SaaS companies rolling out large professional services organizations. I think they're still looking for leverage from services organizations that are out there in the market to get users successful with their applications. So I don't think it goes away. I think it just shifts, and it shifts more towards services.
I think it depends on your view, right? If you're an ISV, you love the idea that you can control your destiny a little bit through your own direct sales force. And a lot of SaaS applications get sold in a teleweb model, and it works well. I think as much as that's great, I think that the overall adoption of cloud will require, I think, ISVs to think about how they're going to be more relevant in the greater context. And hey, I have an app that is great for the salespeople, or I have an app that's great for the HR folks. I think they have to think about, the data that my app generates, how can that be used throughout the enterprise to drive more value? And because, SaaS apps are easy on, but then they're also easy off, right? So if somebody else comes in and they say, well, we can do all those things that, the other guys can do, but by the way, we're also connected into 5 other applications that you use here at this company, that may be perceived as more relevant. So I think ISVs will start to see more value in being more connected, but at the same time, I think, the partner, whether it's in my industry, the SI or the VAR, they have to completely adopt to a new model, right? Where they're not just selling $10,000 of software and $20,000 of services. They've got to figure out how they're going to bring this together all on a subscription basis. So I think there's going to be some really interesting innovation.
We shouldn't have a conversation before the panel, because then you can get all my questions before I get them out there. So I think I have one more time before I want to kick it off to the audience, and this is what I would say is the 3 levels of what we had to get to.
Yeah.
Initial partnership, we'll put your logo on the page, we'll get a lead referral, kind of the app store stuff that we saw with Salesforce. Now we're finally seeing APIs and automation and stuff driving the next level. But I work for a very large reseller, and you think hardware companies and software companies have a hard time adopting to a SaaS recurring revenue model? You should see the people run downstream from that. How do you train these people to sell this product? How do you get them to comp their sales reps right? I mean, which is a humongous problem in getting this out there. How do you get them down the line? I mean, you know, especially as you get into these people who are traditional resellers or into like telecoms and the like, they don't have a clue on how to sell a recurring revenue web-based SaaS cloud product. How do you take that and enable those guys to actually sell? I mean, Oracle, look all you have to do to help your partners to sell.
Yeah.
If you were going to do 80% of our revenue on channel, how do you guys make that work? Because they're not easy. Dave?
I mean, once again, I have a lot of opinions on stuff. I think from my point of view, over the last 3.5 years, I would consider it a massive disqualification if I'm talking to a CEO or a business leader and so forth of a partnership opportunity where they are so financially operated around hardware deal movement, like they're a big NetApp or EMC shop, and the way their salespeople are financially measured. I don't try to convert the folks that aren't converted. I don't try to get somebody to do something unnatural. Actually, I've been a long-time believer on partner-based success, that it's got to be real at the revenue level, which means you have to really work with folks to ensure they're able to make money the way they're used to making money, that the partnership can be as natural as possible. And you know, again, there's two sides of this I've seen. One is there can be situations where the subscription model isn't abnormal for them and they're able to get on board about their participation. That they actually, as much as there's the negative you kind of brought up earlier on not having that huge big ticket up front on an on-prem scenario, there's also that reoccurring revenue stream that can be another side of it, to actually have a participation on a year-over-year growth, as long as you're not having a high churn situation, to participate in that ongoing success. In our company, at least, we don't limit people on the ongoing. We want them to see the benefit of that reoccurring revenue. The second thing is, which is probably even the more common, the thing I'm about to say next, is they're usually aligning with us because this is a major value add to their client world, and they're selling services, and they're looking better and helping their customers succeed in a bigger way because of what we're built into with them. So I think that tends to be the bigger thing. But I definitely am not a big believer in trying to convert the opposite end of the spectrum people to see, you know, I'm here to change you. I don't think going out there and trying to change.
It's amazing how many times they want to do it and still they can't figure out how to comp their reps the right way. So
Exactly.
no matter how dedicated they are. So we got about 5 minutes left. We want to throw it out to the audience for any things on embedded technology APIs. We're right up to the second row there.
How do you all feel about these app stores that are springing up around some of these core products? I mean, Salesforce is just one example. Magento has one. I mean, it seems like everywhere you look, you know, a product that has APIs now has an app store, and so that's a form of partnering.
Right.
Sure.
And where do you think that's headed?
I think more.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be more of that, right? But you know what's interesting? It's very self-serving to the ISV that creates it, right? Because it's sort of the ultimate hub and spoke wheel, where all the spokes, where the other ISV apps, they're writing a connector in a sense, right? That's what they're doing. They're connecting to whatever it is, Magento, Salesforce, or whatever. You know, one would argue that over a period of time, there has to be some sort of greater standard that you have the ability to connect multiple marketplaces. I don't know how that's going to evolve over time, but I do think it provides a lot of value and a lot of relevance to the users of those SaaS applications, because they're getting added value that's integrated in with the app.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think we're seeing more tightly coupled applications. Oracle acquired Taleo, and Taleo had a very mature set of ISVs that integrated with Taleo's applications. And you know, what we saw was that the API set and the types of integrations didn't stop at the data layer. They went beyond, and they had process level and UI level integrations, so that when a user was interacting with a process, so if you looked at Taleo hooked up with a background check vendor, right, it wasn't just data being thrown over the wall. It was data orchestrated by the process in the workflow within the Taleo application, going back and forth. So as the user, you saw just the Taleo application with all of this going on with the partner application. This would be higher right in the background. So I think for an ISV, it creates a much stickier application experience, and takes away that that stitching together that the customer would have done, right? In the past, the customer never would have invested to build that type of an integration in an on-premise model.
By the way, one extra thing to it, I think what both the parties said so far is spot on. It's definitely growing fast, and I think the extra layer of intelligence just described is also, shows the evolution, right? Yeah, and I think, where Lou was going a second ago too is really interesting, is I think people here kind of raise their hand around hybrid or the fact that they're seeing a combination of cloud, on-prem, and so forth. I find it interesting, even in our relationship with Engine Yard, that at first it was all about the automation of working within a marketplace to make it easy to use our application with other applications, and all this works nicely within that one-stop shop marketplace. But I think where that's going to evolve is people don't, a small shop might run their entire world there, right? But what about a larger shop that part of their world's at Engine Yard, but part of it's somewhere else, and part of it's somewhere else? I think the concept of federated or interlinked applications, experiences, and so forth that aren't limited to a marketplace, but through a combination of marketplaces. Getting these things to work across multiple places more seamlessly is going to be a next challenge of where it's going to go. Like everyone said, it's going to keep growing.
We have time for one more quick question. Remember, everybody will be here afterwards too if we got in right next to that, because you had your hand up first.
Hi. My company benchmarks software and SaaS companies. I've worked with a number of you guys. And what we've seen over the past 7 years is that both partnering and selling through a channel as well as international sales have increased since 7 years ago, when it was almost zero for SaaS companies, or particularly for private SaaS companies. And now I'm seeing more and more quite significant numbers through the channel, but also internationally. And to David's point, that a key element of partnering is making sure it's a natural business and how your partner earns their revenue. So do you see differences in how you partner in the US versus the kind of partners that you have in Europe, and differences between Europe and Asia, for example?
I'll go first if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, matter of fact, you go first and last on this one. And that was my last question I never got to, so it's good. That's the last one on our list.
You must be a ringer on that. So it is interesting. First of all, I think I think we've definitely reflected your study as well. I mean, I think we mirror your study, and in a short order, within a few years, we went from a U.S.-based SaaS company to having 70 countries around the world served through our SaaS solution. Sometimes it was driven by partners, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes after the fact, people were looking for some extra help in country. The part that I find as one of the smaller guys at the table that is kind of in our growth stages of all this is we always knew that SaaS for us was eventually going to get to be a large enterprise offering, the same way that the Salesforces or the HR world was becoming enterprise accepted. In the last year for us alone, we're getting Fortune 50, Global 50, type companies knocking down our door without being sold to in country. And what typically happens is that's what drives or changes the behavior of global SIs. One of two things typically happens for us. One is that it actually comes in from a global systems integrator saying, we want to represent you in the following country, and here's the market we've already established that's ready to use this. Some of them are already using your product, but they need more help that we can run with. So I think currently for us, the first time we did this at all was a few years ago with Asia. Right now we're currently in process of some extremely large players in Europe, as well as I think Scott, who works for me, is right behind you. I think he's working on something in Australia right now as well. That kind of probably a bit of an offshoot of the Asian market. So typically what this is just doing is changing. I mean, every region has its own flavor. It has its own knowledge of the market needs. And I think to the question that went on earlier about how this is shifting, I basically think what we're identifying here is that SaaS companies have a tremendous opportunity with global SIs on how they can bring in-country localized value. I haven't seen this part happen yet, but I've seen this in other past companies of mine, is where we've also leveraged them for things like localization in country. Definitely for support tends to be a great immediate scenario to be that first line of upfront support.
Okay, Katie's giving us some grief, so I do want to give you guys one last 20 seconds. One piece of advice.
Doily, Kaylee.
13:05. 13:05. I'll give you 30 seconds then, because you said we're fine. One piece of advice that you would give for everybody in there if they want to be successful in partnering with their as an ISV 30 seconds.
If you want to be an ISV and you want to be successful, focus on your core competence and partner with Corent to SaaS enable your solution.
Okay, I expect the rest of you to do better than that, so go ahead, Kevin.
Don't be so shameless.
I'll try not to be so shameless. I think as an ISV in the cloud space, you need to focus on your architecture. I think that having a stable, scalable architecture will allow you to grow as a business and focus on what should be your core competency, which is your application and getting customers successful on it.
Lou?
So I think with partnering, you want to think not only about what you're going to need to do to be successful today, but where you think the market's going, where you think your application space is going, and to build the kinds of relationships with partners that's going to take you 5 years down the road. Because you know, what we're doing today will certainly change a ton in the next 5 years.
Dave?
Definitely, like I've said in the past, on the technology side, ensure that you just go crazy with the API disciplines, both in the robustness of it, the documentation of it, and so forth. On the business side, be very transparent and core with the partner and push for that in return. Be goal-oriented. Make sure you each have near-term milestones of how you're helping each other make money. If you can't identify that and find a quick path to helping each other grow each other's businesses, it's not a partnership.
Good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Trevor.